There was an ordinary man, hands calloused from the sea, who could never have imagined that his life would change the course of human history. A fisherman named Simon, who would become Peter, the rock upon which Christ would build his church. This is the journey of someone like you and me, someone who stumbled, who faltered, but who also rose again. Someone who faced fear, doubt, and failure, yet experienced forgiveness, courage, and redemption. Today, we'll walk together along this ancient path, illuminated by words that have echoed through centuries and still resonate in hearts seeking faith, purpose, and hope. Prepare yourself, because this is not just Peter's story. It's the story of every human being daring to believe that God can turn weakness into strength and failure into mission. As you listen, allow yourself to be part of this narrative. Perhaps you will see reflections of your own life in every step of this journey. Before we begin, share in the comments. When have you felt called by God to something greater than yourself? Peter was just Simon, a fisherman in Galilee, living the same days over and over, casting nets at dawn, repeating gestures inherited from his parents. A simple man, accustomed to the silence of the sea and the weight of labor. But one encounter changed everything. On the shore of the lake, Jesus called him, "Follow me." Not ordinary words, but seeds that pierced his soul and ignited his routine. How often are we trapped in life's monotony, believing nothing new can happen? And suddenly, a call comes that shatters the routine and points to a greater path. Peter was far from perfect. Impulsive, speaking before thinking, acting before reflecting. And precisely for that reason, we see ourselves in him. God calls real people, not ready-made heroes. At that moment, Simon left the nets behind. A small act in human eyes, yet monumental in eternity. It was the first step toward a story that still inspires millions. And you? Have you ever felt a call to change your course, even without knowing where the path would lead? Share in the comments. Your experience might inspire fellow seekers. It was night. The wind blew hard, and the disciples struggled against the waves, threatening to capsize the boat. In the midst of the storm, a figure appeared, walking on water. It was the Master. Peter's heart raced. With boldness he said, "If it's you, command me to come." And against all human logic, he stepped out of the boat and walked on the churning waters. For a moment, faith outweighed fear. But when he took his eyes off Jesus and looked at the storm, he began to sink, crying out, "Lord, save me." How often do we do the same in life? Taking brave steps, only to be overwhelmed by worry, unexpected news, or old wounds, feeling like we're drowning. Yet Christ's hand remains steadfast, ready to catch us when strength fails. It's not the storm that decides the ending, but whom we choose to look at amid it. Have you ever felt like you were sinking, only to be lifted by God's hand? Share in the comments. Your story could encourage someone today. In the villages of Caesarea Philippi, Jesus asked a question that still echoes, "Who do people say I am?" The disciples murmured answers, but Peter went further. With conviction, he declared, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." These words were not born of flesh or logic, but of a direct revelation from the Father. At that moment, the fisherman became the rock, a symbol of the faith that would sustain believers for centuries. It was more than an answer. It was an eternal milestone. How often are we confronted with the same question? Who is Jesus to us? Not what others say, but what burns in our own hearts. It is in this intimate encounter that we discover who we are, because Peter's identity was revealed when he recognized the identity of Christ. The truth about the Master reveals the truth about the disciple. And you? Have you ever experienced a spiritual clarity that revealed who Jesus truly is in your life? Share in the comments. Your revelation may strengthen someone else's faith. Peter, James, and John were taken by Jesus to a high mountain. There, before their weary eyes, the Master was transfigured, His face shone like the sun, and his clothes radiated brilliant light. Moses and Elijah appeared in glory, and Peter, overwhelmed, wanted to build tents to preserve that sacred moment. He did not know what he was saying, but his heart longed to stay in the brilliance. Then a cloud enveloped them, and the Father's voice echoed, "This is my beloved Son. Listen to him." The invisible became visible, and the eternal touched time. How often do we experience glimpses of God's glory? Moments so powerful we wish we could freeze them forever. Yet life is not only mountaintops. We must descend, for it is in the valleys, amid challenges and trials, that faith is tested and matured. Have you ever experienced a profound encounter with God that marked your journey? Share in the comments. Your story could ignite hope in someone's heart. It was the darkest night. The Master had been arrested, and fear hung heavy over the disciples. Peter, who had vowed loyalty, now warmed himself by a fire. 3 times he was asked, "Were you with him?" 3 times he replied, "I do not know him." When the rooster crowed, Peter's heart shattered in bitter tears. In that moment, he saw the mirror of his own fragility. The man who had promised to die for the Master could not withstand the pressure of a single servant, of accusing eyes, of probing voices. Aren't we often the same? How many times do we deny, through actions or silence, even when we long to be faithful? Human weakness is real, but it is not the final word. Jesus' eyes met Peter's that night, not with condemnation, but with a love deeper than any sword. And here, a suspense builds. Can someone who denied truly be restored? This question opens the door to the next chapter of Peter's journey. After the resurrection, Jesus met Peter by the Sea of Tiberias, where he had cast his nets countless times. The sun rose, painting the water in gold, as if the world itself announced a new beginning. 3 times Jesus asked, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" 3 times Peter replied affirmatively, and with each answer, the weight of guilt melted away, replaced by grace. It was a moment of redemption and mission. Peter realized that his failures were not the end, but the prelude to a greater purpose. Every mistake now became strength for leadership and inspiration. How often do we also need such encounters, where God looks at us with patience and gives us a second chance to start anew? Hope never abandons us. Thus, Peter received a clear mission to shepherd and care for the Lord's flock. His life would become a testimony of faith, courage, and transformation. Have you ever experienced a moment where you felt restored or called anew to something greater? Share in the comments. Your story can touch someone's heart today. After the resurrection, Peter became unstoppable. He preached boldly, challenging leaders, conventions, and fears that once paralyzed him. Every word carried the authority of the risen Master. He faced crowds, imprisonment, and threats, yet nothing could extinguish the flame in his heart. The man who once denied now proclaimed without fear, "Jesus is the Christ, the Savior." Peter was not invincible, but his faith transformed him. Every challenge became an opportunity to show that true strength comes from dependence on God, not human skill. How often do we feel fear, hesitant to speak or act, yet when we trust in the divine, courage appears seemingly out of nowhere. Peter reminds us it's possible to move forward even with a trembling heart. His sermons changed lives. Thousands listened and were converted, touched by sincerity, repentance, and overflowing love. And you? Have you ever felt called to act courageously despite fear and uncertainty? Share in the comments. Your experience can inspire someone to take their first step. Peter became the rock upon which Jesus built the church. Every act of faith, every word of courage, every heartfelt prayer was a brick laid in this eternal foundation. He guided the first disciples with wisdom, soothing doubts and fears, showing that true faith manifests in love and community. Even amidst persecution, imprisonment, and threats, Peter remained steadfast, understanding that his mission transcended his own life. Every sacrifice strengthened the mission of spreading the gospel. How often are we called to uphold something greater than ourselves? Life offers opportunities to build bridges, communities, and legacies that withstand time. Peter's testimony echoes through centuries, reminding us that our influence begins in the courage to live with integrity and faith. Small acts can create eternal impact. And you? Have you ever been part of something greater than yourself? Something that would impact lives long after your own story? Share in the comments. Your experience matters. Over time, Peter faced the greatest challenges of his life. Imprisonments, threats, and persecutions tested his faith. Yet he remained steadfast, knowing that each trial shaped his soul for eternity. Even surrounded by fear of death, he did not deny his faith. Every uncertain step was supported by unshakable trust in the Lord, who promised to be with him until the very end. Peter's faith was not perfect. Doubts, fears, and tears existed. Yet he rose after every fall, showing that true strength comes from perseverance, not the absence of weakness. How often do we feel our trials are too much to bear? Peter reminds us that God strengthens us precisely in the heat of the battle. His acts of courage inspired and continue to inspire countless people. Men and women see in his life proof that faith, even when tested, can illuminate the world. And you? Have you ever faced moments where your faith was challenged? Share in the comments. Your story can strengthen someone seeking courage right now. Peter ended his earthly journey with courage and faith, becoming a martyr for what he believed. His life was not merely remembered. It was immortalized, inspiring generations to follow Christ. Every gesture, every word, every act of love left a legacy beyond time. Peter shows that true greatness arises from fidelity and total surrender. He reminds us that we are not defined by our mistakes, but by our ability to rise and continue serving, even when life tests us with pain and suffering. How many lives throughout history have been touched by his courage? How many hearts transformed by his words of faith? Peter's impact is as real today as it was 2,000 years ago. And you, have you reflected on the legacy you wish to leave? How your actions can touch lives and inspire others to persevere in faith and love. Peter's story invites us to live with courage, hope, and purpose. In the comments, share your experience, your faith, or what Peter's life awakens in you. We want to hear your voice. Peter's life teaches us that no matter how ordinary or flawed we are, God calls us to extraordinary things. Every fall, doubt, and tear becomes part of a larger story. He shows us that courage is born from love, faith grows stronger through trials, and hope never abandons those who follow with an open heart. Reflecting on his legacy, we see that his story is not just about a man from the past, but about us stumbling, rising, and moving forward, guided by the light of faith. Like Peter, we are invited to answer God's call, even when the storm seems unbearable, even when the world challenges us to give up. Every step of faith bridges the human to the divine. Now, we invite you to be part of this story. Share in the comments how Peter's life resonates with your journey. What moments of courage, restoration, or faith have you experienced? Don't let this inspiration end here. Like, share, and subscribe to continue exploring stories that touch the heart and strengthen the soul. The adventure of faith continues, and you are part of it. God bless you.